For several weeks now, Marcus Mariota has been at the top for me, and the real questions have been at who's going to be 2, who's going to be 3, and does the rest of the country really recognize what he's doing? They haven't had the opportunity, I think, like I have, to see him and you have, to see him on a regular basis and see him week to week, and the leadership and the poise and the class.
I don't think it's a question of whether Marcus is going to win the Heisman. I think it's a question of whether he's going to be unanimous. But what I think is the most important thing about Marcus winning the Heisman is people 15, 20 years from now are not only going to look and recognize that he was a great player, but I'm hoping that they go back and study him up and realize what a great person he was too, because I think part of being the Heisman takes into account character, and Scott Frost, the offensive coordinator, also kind of echoed that tonight, saying that this award is the pinnacle of college football players, and it should stand for character and performance.
I'm actually one of those guys that I'm incredibly skeptical about a lot of those stories that you hear about how this guy is so nice and all that sort of stuff, because, you know, it's you can talk to a guy so much on the surface here, like outside practices and all those sorts of things, but, you know, they could be a completely different person outside of that. But over the last 8 or 9 months that we've got to be around Marcus, like, you find that, like, if he's acting, he deserves an Oscar. He's one of the most genuine players, especially for all, like, the accolades and the talent level he has. He's a legitimately good person, which goes along with the fact that I've just been blown away by his football skills this year.
I think a particular play that I'll remember is his leap against Wyoming this year. It wasn't the biggest game of the year by any means, and it certainly wasn't the most important, and it was only one of about 53 touchdowns on his season to this point. But it signaled that he would kind of put his body on the line, and it would play, basically he wouldn't kind of be hold himself back after a year in which his knee injury dominated the headlines and really was a huge factor in why Oregon was not able to achieve its lofty expectations.
I worked in Hawaii, my first job out of college, and kind of got to know a lot of the people there and the culture around there. And I know he's a huge deal around there. I was actually talking to DeForest Buckner after the game today. He played against Marcus in high school in Honolulu, and he said, you know, there's kind of a hierarchy of players in Hawaii in terms of everyone's favorite. You got, like, the Timmy Changs and Colt Brennans, those guys that put up incredible numbers for the University of Hawaii and really became kind of the face of football down there. And he said Marcus is already ahead of those guys, and you know, with the potential of him winning a Heisman, he's just going to be probably the most famous person down there on those islands. And I mean, there can't be a better representative for a place that is so proud of their culture and their heritage, and, you know, Marcus is just a fantastic representative for that.
We talk about that integrity clause that's in the Heisman voting. I mean, I think without question, you hear it from Mark Helfrich, you hear it from Hronis Grasu and his teammates and the younger players on the team, what a classy individual Marcus Mariota is. But, you know, I've seen it for myself firsthand and watching him interact with people in the public, and when really he doesn't think anybody's watching. You know, that's when you see what Marcus Mariota is about.
I can't recall a player who I've been more impressed with. You know, Brandon Roy in the NBA comes to mind, but he's nothing like Marcus. There's nobody like Marcus when it comes to just pure goodness. I don't even know if that's the right way to put it, but he is so well-intentioned in everything he does, his studies, his friendship, being a teammate, and his craft, which is one of the best quarterbacks college football has seen in a long, long time.
I think he's a special player. I think, you know, obviously, I think he's, you know, I think he's the greatest player that we've seen in the state, and I haven't seen everybody. I haven't seen Norm Van Brocklin run around, but I'd be hard-pressed to think that you'd take him in front of Marcus Mariota or Dan Fouts even as a college player. But what he has accomplished here is nothing short of amazing. I think we're really going to get an appreciation for that as we watch subsequent quarterbacks come over the years, and he makes us, you know, forget about the guys that came between Dan Fouts and Joey Harrington and Chris Miller and, you know, Tony Graziani. And I mean, there were some good quarterbacks who Marcus Mariota has absolutely obliterated in the record books and made you forget about as leaders. So I think it's really neat to see that. I'm really curious to see the margin of victory. I think he's a 90 percent guy in the Heisman race, and there have only been 2 players in Heisman history who have garnered more than 90% of the vote. I think he's one of those guys, but I'll be curious to see if the East Coast and the South feels the same way that we do here in the Northwest and on the West Coast.